Hi, folks. Welcome to Dow's Weekly Digest. Digest, kind of like maybe the old Reader's Digest. I remember years back used to read those short stories. So again, the purpose of this is maybe to cover some personal items, maybe some action items, and then some recommendations to you, and maybe on things that happened, transpired this week. So let's jump into a little bit here. Cowboy Wisdom. One that stuck with me last time I shared with you some Cowboy Wisdom was when you lose, don't lose the lesson. When you lose, don't lose the lesson. Today, I'd like to then share with you this. Timing. Timing has a lot to do with the outcome of a rain dance. So keep in mind that the timing of things. Okay, so sometimes it might not be the best the best time. Okay, never ask a barber if you need a haircut. Okay, and if you think you're becoming this person of influence, just try to give someone else's dog some instructions to do. That animal will let you know right away that you're not a person of influence there. So there's a little bit of a cowboy wisdom there for you. We've had some pretty good rains this week, and it reminded me as I was growing up in northeast Nebraska. I was living in a little town called Macy, Nebraska. Is on an Indian reservation, the Omaha Indian Reservation, probably about 25 miles south of Sioux City, Iowa. When I was growing up there and going to school, I was old enough to go to junior high, and Macy did not have a junior high school or a high school. So we had to get bused. So we were bused from the little village of Macy over to a neighboring town. The roads were dirt roads, Nebraska gumbo dirt. I mean, there was no gravel on those roads at all, folks. And when the spring rains would come like we've had this week, you would get stuck in a rut. You would have ruts that people had tried to drive up to maybe their homes. And they would try to stay in those ruts. And if you stayed in the ruts, you maybe had a better time. But when you walked to the bus, as I did, I would even get stuck in the ruts. So much so that I even brought, all of us would bring an extra pair of shoes. We bought a pair of shoes, and with that pair of shoes that I brought, I left them on the bus. Everybody did. And when we came to the bus, we had a pair of shoes that we brought along, some clean ones, went through the muck and the rut, got on the bus, took our shoes off, left them there. The point was, even sometimes, you would get stuck in the muck so much, or stuck in a rut, that you'd walk right out of your shoes. And at that point, of course, being a kid, you just pick up your shoes and you just walk barefoot. But that's a little story on the spring rains that we've had here that reminded me of that. We're all dealing with change in that. You've got the e-applications. Recently this week I saw where then notary in a lot of the states are being approved. They could do a notary. You can get a notary electronically. I think the mention was that 42 of the states now approve electronic notary. So boy, folks, changes are coming all the time. 1 month after I graduated from college, I joined this industry. It was that fast. Well, when I did, I was given a gift, and I was given a gift of pocket watch. And I carried that watch all around the place in my in my pocket, of course, to do that. Well, times change. Believe it or not, this old man has got a digital watch. I can change the face of this digital watch. I can even get email with this watch and see little snippets of email. Believe it or not, with me, high-tech me. And I haven't done it yet, but you can even get a phone call on this watch, folks, and talk to somebody. I haven't done that yet. But times are changing, so sometimes you have to kind of work with the changes. Now, is this working? Sure. Gives me the time and everything, but this gives me a lot more options. E-applications, folks, if you haven't even looked at that and say, no, that's not maybe for me and my clientele. I went to a neighbor just the other night, stopped in to say hi to him, and she came out and Jan says, yeah, Denny's in at a Zoom meeting for church. And Denny is like 72 years old, and there he is in a Zoom meeting. Monday night, I'll be on a Zoom meeting of an organization that I belong to. And folks, I'm the youngest one of that organization I'm speaking of. And yet we're going to be in a Zoom meeting. So don't think that hurdle sometimes is there in regards to our clients. And so if they can get an email or if they've got a phone, you can get an e-application to them, and they can do that process. So change. Sometimes it's not the easiest, but it is there. Give you a real fast example here. If you've got a watch, take your watch off and put it on this wrist. How many of you had the opportunity to send a thank you card out? And I said, what? Handwrite it. Send this in the mail. If you haven't thought of that, I would put this on their list maybe of a action item here, folks. They want to hear from you, and what better way to do it than to say thanks, folks. Thanks. One of my top goals have always been to be considered a gentleman. But it doesn't mean that there isn't going to be stress in your life, something like that. To Mike Tyson says, every fighter's got a plan until he gets hit in the mouth. And what better person to maybe say it than Mike Tyson? So we can have all kinds of plans, and then they can just go by the wayside there. So here's some tips in regards to maybe handling changes as they come about. Okay, number one, change your mindset. Okay, so we acknowledge that we all make mistakes, and sometimes with the information we have, and we don't have enough information. But so what? Now what? So what? This is the situation I'm in. It's changed. Indeed, it has changed. So what do we do from here? Go on from there. So be able to change your mindset there. Let me give you a fast little example here, folks. In working with the fellow wholesalers here, the internal wholesalers there, all of them sat down and set some particular goals. And we did this in December and January. And we used this a little bit as an object lesson. And you might want to contact them and ask them, say, Dal showed the jar and maybe something in it. Looks like here, this is a $2 bill in here, folks. What's that all about? And they'll share that with you. But indeed, 7-8 weeks ago, things changed. Number one, change your mindset. Number two, divide and conquer. Number three, reward yourself. Number four, give yourself permission to say no. You're a leader out there, no doubt. And a lot of times, they will ask you in regards to, will you help? Will you volunteer for this? You being that leader, sometimes you need to develop to be able to say the word no. Give yourself permission to say no there. And number five, get yourself enough sleep. The older I get, the earlier I get up. How's 3:30 in the morning sound? My wife gets up at 3:30, I'm up at 4. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been getting up at 3:30 or 4:30 in the morning, folks. I can't tell you why it changes, but with this old gray hair, it does. Do not call after 9 o'clock. Okay, we won't answer the phone. Okay, let me continue here and share a couple of personal items that came across me. Could the COVID-19 stimulus check conflict or maybe be a little friction with someone's Medicaid eligibility? They would need to maybe have that checked out by an attorney to make sure that isn't going to be a problem, either now or down the road. And again, that probably wasn't what the intent that the U.S. government had, but the way some statutes are on the books, it could, folks. And I thought, well, that's a good little tip that I'm going to pass on. Here are some, I call them action items, folks. Action items would be items that, if you want to do a little deeper dig, and I would sure invite you to do so, contact one of our internal wholesalers. They would be more than happy to help you in regards to some of these. So here's an action item. Okay. Fixed index annuities is one of the best vehicles for a client to balance safety. It gives them a smoother ride. And here are some reasons, okay? Fixed indexed annuities let you participate in some of the what? Market upside, but not participate in what? The market downside. Maybe the phrase zero is a hero. Fixed indexed annuities have an annual reset feature. It could enable clients to lock in the gains. So we contact our interior wholesalers in regards to the safety, balance, and growth with the indexed annuities here. Another action item, maximizing the gift exemption in uncertain times here. We know the sunset that's going to happen on 2026, okay? The advantage of making gifts today in this current environment. And brought up not only in regards to some literature I received, but also in one particular webinar, was the ways to look at leveraging at some of the lowest applicable federal rate, called the AFR. AFR is so low in regards to maybe setting up a trust, the life insurance, lending to the trust, some of these tools and everything, that folks, this is one of the most potential, best times for clients to be looking at that. So such things as the wait and see gifting strategy should be something maybe that you could put on your docket as what an action item to contact our internal wholesalers about. Survey recently done through, I think it was LIMRA and Loma together. 18 to 34-year-olds are more interested in the following than the general public. 18 to 34-year-old folks are more interested in life insurance and annuities than the general public. They're interested in what matters to them most. Those people are interested enough, they're wanting to sit down with you and do some planning. They're very open to talk about planning for the future with them. Down to the basics, why do people buy life insurance? Income replacement, right? Funeral and final expenses. Pay off debt, such as a mortgage. How many of you actually delivered a death claim? I heard a gentleman just this morning speak of that his first death claim was $5,000. His largest death claim that he delivered was to a trust for $5 million. The death claim that he delivered for $5,000 meant more to that family than it did to the trustees of this business. You need to contact them to do that planning, folks. What's the biggest policy you've written? I know I can't hear you, but the biggest policy you've written, I hope the answer you give me is, I haven't written it yet. And that's what we're here for, to help you to write that. You know, we have this particular item right here, and if you would like one of these, contact your internal wholesaler and we can get one to you. I'm going to show it to you right here, right now. Now, I understand it may be kind of small writing there, so let me share this with you folks. Our job is to ask you about life insurance. Please don't make it my job. Please don't make it my job to tell your family that you didn't have any. You know, that spouse is one I'm going to know at the death, how much insurance did they have? Okay? Will we have to move out of our home? And can my kids continue to go to school? This is it right here, folks. They need you to contact them. Another action item that came up is, again, in a webinar. Deliver a better solution for protecting key employees. Now, when I say the word key employees, I'm speaking of the classification and generalities there of white collar. White collar. And I'm speaking of maybe two arenas here: guaranteed issue and simplified underwriting. If I have participants of at least 25 participants of what type? Again, key employees, white collar. Maybe a group of accountants. maybe a group of attorneys. They could even buy term insurance, and it could be guaranteed issue. If we would use permanent, such as a UL or maybe an IUL, then we can go down to 10 white collar. Next level, simplified underwriting. Basically what? No blood, no pyramid, things of this sort. If it was on the permanent basis, I can go down to 5 employees. I can go down to 5 employees and get the simplified issue on this permanent basis there. So there's quite an arena there. Again, it's a niche, but think of it as a possible action item for you. Let me throw out some observations I've had this week, folks. Diabetic child. We have a children's term writer. So the children's term writer was able to cover this child with no insurability questions at all on this child. I repeat, no insurability questions for this child. And we were able to get that child covered. So yes, we covered the money earner, that being one of the parents, but more importantly, we were able to also include in that same package what? Coverage for this child. And what comes right along with this, folks? Convertibility. In the future, getting life insurance may be just as hard as it is now for them on an individual basis there. An observation. You heard me talk more than once on what? The e-application? We had an e-application that was less than a week. Less than a week, folks, in regards to at the time of input to the time that the e-policy went out to the client. Less than a week. It may be, what? The new normal for us there, folks. How about some recommended movies, moving to this stage personal-wise here. October Sky. I think last time that we talked, I mentioned Apollo 13. And I would recommend the movie October Sky to you there as far as a movie. 2 books this time. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by this icon, Dale Carnegie. The second book that I'd recommend, I've just ordered myself, and maybe I'll share some of the chapters with you in the weekly digest in the future. But the author is Steve Anderson, and it is looking at, it's called the Bezos Letters. Jeff Bezos is the owner of Amazon. And what Steve Anderson has done with his wife, they've since about 1997 gone through all the stockholder letters. He mentions day one, the customer is number one. There is no day 2. And so he's got different points in regards to philosophy on that. But I found the book already and in the studying it to be very, very informational and insightful. Again, this, folks, little hint, I'm a baby boomer and I like frosted cornflakes. GP for you equals what? G. GP for you equals G. I'm a baby boomer and I like frosted cornflakes. Maybe my last story here. Being here, in the industry well over going on 50 years, sometimes you reflect on, okay, why'd you be willing to spend so much time in regards to this industry? And hopefully I shared a little bit today why I think I'm honored to be in this industry. I mentioned too that one of our presidents says, boy, everything you want to find, you could find in the Bible. In the Old Testament time, there was a young gentleman, and he was insightful enough that he told the people, we're going to have 7 years of good years, and we're going to have 7 years of bad years. And so we want everybody to bring in their grain. You might say the monetary item at the time of back then, and we're going to store the grain so that we could take advantage of our good years, and then when the need comes, we're going to be able to cover that risk. Folks, that's what our industry does. We cover risk. We're risk managers. We help our clients then plan for not today, but for tomorrow, and covering the risk. Instead of being grain, it's now called what? Premium dollars. And we bring them together in regards to some major corporations. You know, we're hearing on how this COVID-19 is going to affect different industries. We've planned for this risk as an industry. It's not going to hit our industry. We have planned for this, folks. We have stored the grain for everyone. Okay, I spoke of the book, I spoke of the movie. I can't forget the poem. The poem that I recommend is It's Not the Critic That Counts. And the author of this, our own Teddy Roosevelt. I've got a couple short videos I'd like to share with you, if I can. It's from Lincoln National, and it is called The Art of Discovery. It's not going to be long, but boy, there's a lot of good threads of good information there. The second video here to show you the person that you're going to see and hear is Red Skelton. At one of his shows, then towards the end, gave this particular speech. And I think it's a good time to listen to it, and it resonates with our whole country. And so I hope you'll enjoy both those videos.
So Tim, when you're talking about trust, you mentioned the art of discovery. Can you explain what is that?
The art of discovery is just really asking great questions. It's about, do the advisors take the time to really understand the wants, the needs, and desires, not only financially, but also personally.
So how do you make that specific enough that your client feels like you know them?
It's about family, it's about friends, it's about interests, it's about what are the things that are really most important to them. I'll give you an example. Is every time we meet with a client, there should be certain categories or boxes that you start filling up, right? And so just one of the simple success stories that I heard from a financial advisor through the lens of the client was that a lot of advisors may just ask, how are the grandkids doing? Well, let's get more specific. So why don't we say specifically, how is TJ or Timothy Jr. doing, Tommy, and Anna Marie? So just something as simple as the name of how important that is. Or when you mention about the colleges or their alma mater that are most important to them, why don't you actually mention, so what about Penn State? And how did they do? Or some of their hobbies. So the more specific you can be around those topics that are most important to your client, the better the relationship would be.
Really, that art of discovery could have been what the art of listening. And I think that's what the next one with Red Skelton will be in regards to our Pledge of Allegiance. He's speaking to students, and he's telling these students what? Listen to really what you're saying and what the meaning is of the words that you're using. Enjoy.
I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. And I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. And he says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester. And it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. allegiance, my love, and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose. And that's love for country. And to the Republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
Well, this has been Dow's Weekly Digest, bringing you some personal items, a little bit of stories, a little bit, and some action items. And I really highly recommend that you contact your internal wholesaler and ask them more about some of these action items. You know, get them on your list in case it would come up like that. And remember this, folks: blessed are those who ease the pain of misfortune, for they shall be called insurance agents. You take care.